Making my Mayyybeeeee cosplay for CSC's cosplay contest. We gotta start with planning. I always start with planning. Well, usually. I made this little board on Canva that was just reference photos of how they draw her and actual like real life stuff, like the pants that I wanted to incorporate into the interpretation of her design. And then also personally, because I'm patterning this myself from zero, I need to know where my seam lines are. I need to know what types of sleeves, what type of pant, whatever. I need to see it. So I started with this lovely little fashion illustration. So let me actually tell you what I'm planning for my design. She needs a puff sleeve with a 3/4 length fitted sleeve. I want a fully fitted bodice, and I'm gonna do that with fisheye darts in the waist/chest. And then I'm also gonna do side seam chest darts. The back is also gonna have fisheye darts so that it has a really nice fit. And then of course, she has that yoke in the front that I'm gonna copy in the back, and the front yoke I'm gonna put pin tucks into, which I will talk about later. For the legs, I want a harem pant style, except I want like a handkerchief style harem pant, which I don't know if that's a thing. But the point is that it has it's more square rather than soft and drapey. And then the most important thing, it is all one piece. I do not want two pieces. I want it all like a jumper. That is the plan. But first, we're gonna go thrifting. When I started this project like a year and a half ago, maybe a year, I was like, I'm gonna make this in like a week, and I want to spend as little money as possible. So we're sourcing our fabric from the thrift store. I found these little plates that I thought my mom would like, and she did. She loves them. I started my search in the drapery section, curtains, bed sheets, stuff like that. I found a pair of sheer drapes, which looked good, but I would need something behind it, and I didn't want to deal with that. And then I found this bed sheet, which is literally perfect. Perfect shade of navy. So I got it. And this is going to be my base fabric. I then had to take a trip to Fabricland to get some notions. I got 2 zippers for the legs, invisible zippers, so that I would be able to open the fitted piece in the leg so that I can get my feet in. And then I got a duvet zipper, which is about 60 inches, because I needed about 30 maybe to get from the top of my neck down to my lower back so that I could open it since it's so fitted. So now with our supplies got, we begin the making process. We're starting with our pattern. I didn't film any of the patterning process because I really didn't know what I was doing. I used a base pattern, which was my Vex tunic, so I had to add legs and hips and the full lower body, but it turned out pretty well. I also used a sleeve block from when I was in school to make the fitted sleeve, and then I already had a puff sleeve pattern, so I just reused that. Because I used a bed sheet instead of real fabric, I had a limited amount of fabric, so I had to Tetris all of my pattern pieces, which are awfully weird shapes, into the bed sheet. It ended up being fine, so that's really cool. And to start sewing, we're gonna start with the front yoke with all those pin tucks. So in the front yoke, there is a ton of excess fabric. It basically kind of works like pleating. I snipped into my fabric where each pin tuck gets pinched in. It's just a 1/4 inch fold. So I meet those 2 points together, stitch my little line through, and keep repeating that for the entire width of the front yoke. It starts to look a little something like this. And once I pressed all the pin tucks center out, so the center towards the left, all face the left, center towards the right, all face the right, etc. Because of the type of fabric I chose, which is polyester, whatever, because it's a bed sheet, it just gets really wrinkled and then it doesn't like going underneath the machine. So pressing this entire costume as I go is very important. Back at the machine, I'm just basting down all of the pin tucks in the direction they should be going so that when I put it together, they are in the correct direction. With that done, we're onto the body. So we're starting with the fisheye darts, which if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a diamond shaped dart that pulls from your chest to the waist and then it goes back out again into the hips. I then put together the side seam darts. Oh my gosh, our bobbin winder doesn't work properly, so I overwound that bobbin. Oops. I then put the yolks together, the front and back yolks, onto the rest of the bodies, and then serged all my pieces because I did not want to get fancy. This was a fast project. I did not want to get fancy. I serged neck, shoulder, side seam, crotch, yeah, just every single raw edge got serged. I then started putting together the body, shoulder seam, side seam, and then the crotch. However, I did have trouble with the crotch. I did a bad job patterning that. It is because it's a dropped crotch, and I don't understand. I didn't do good enough research on how that's supposed to work. So as I was sewing it, I think I put it together the way I patterned it, and then I had to take it apart after I fitted it, and it took some trial and error to get it into a good enough spot. Now on to some fun stuff. We gotta put gathering stitches in, which isn't really the fun part, but once you get to gather it, that's fun. I put gathering in the leg, just below the knee, which is where it cuts off, and then gathering stitches into the top and bottom of the puff sleeve. Actually, I didn't put the sleeves in yet, so instead we're gonna put the cuffs onto the legs. Apparently I didn't film putting the zippers into the cuffs. It's just an invisible zipper in a rectangle, or like, what's that polygon shape? No, it's basically a zipper in a rectangle. I just gathered the leg into that cuff and stitched it on. Now in a halfway finished state, we get to do a fitting. I love fittings. Anyway, for this, I just put it on and pinned up the back because I didn't put a zip in yet. And then I just kind of had to figure out what was wrong. Also, please take notice, the zippers in the cuffs do upside down because science. That's how I get it wide enough to get my feet in. Anyway, the alterations. Somehow I made the body too long, and I'm a tall person relatively, so I don't know how I did that. So here I'm bringing up the body and kind of like bringing the yoke down, and I could tell that that was wrong because the bust point on the darts was sitting far too low. I think that was the only major alteration, actually. Actually, it wasn't. Here's the other major alteration. The stupid crotch. The stupid dropped crotch. So you can see when I first sewed it, it was not even. So I'm taking it apart again and recurving, I believe, the front curve on it, cutting away all that excess and re-sewing it once again. Now to actually deal with shortening the body, I'm leaving it pinned together for the minute and just ripping open the seam, and with it still pinned together, more pins to show where the new sew line is on the lower piece. This way I can open where I folded the excess away and just sew it back together where I had it pinned. Now since I had to lower the yoke into the body, that ate into the armhole. So now we have to fix our armhole. Basically, I'm just curving out the bottom of the armhole. Using the curved ruler, I based the new curve off of the armhole curve in the yoke and met back up with the curve in the middle of the shoulder blade in the back. And now we're on to the sleeves for real this time. The gathering stitch, which I already said, because I thought I had done it. And then I started putting together the fitted part of the sleeve. My fitted sleeve has a dart in the elbow, which it gives it its fitted shape. So I did that and put the underarm together. And then I gathered down the bicep side of the puff sleeve into the fitted sleeve bicep. I did this by matching the four corners of the two pieces and gathering down to keep it as even as possible, matching up the underarm seams. I then did basically the exact same thing, but gathering the armhole of the sleeve into the armhole of the body. Okay, we're almost done the sewing part of this. Last couple things. I'm making a collar pattern, which I'm not gonna explain in this, but basically it's a slightly curved rectangle. I then found all my scraps so I can actually cut out that collar piece. I don't know why I didn't pattern it and when I was patterning literally everything else, but whatever. I then just bagged out the top of the collar, and I'll tell you why I didn't do the sides in a second. I made another mistake. I forgot to interface the collar. So after I sewed it together, I put in some fusible interfacing, which is not how you should do it. It should go in first, then sew. But we make do. Here's the reason I didn't bag out the sides of the collar. We're putting in a zip, and the zip is gonna go from the hips of center back all the way up to the very top of the collar. So that in itself will clean finish that side of the collar. And an important little detail, as I do up the second side of the zipper, I am making sure as best I can that the collar seam line and the back yoke seam line is matching up as close as I can possibly get it. The goal is to make it look uninterrupted. Now to finish the zip, I have to do some top stitching to hold the fabric in place so that it covers the teeth of the zipper. Now with the zip in, we do one last fitting. The fit, from what I remember, was perfect. Just like little problems were like, it's not enough. The biggest thing is that the puff sleeves were saggy. They weren't doing what they need to do. So I made little tiny pillows to go inside the sleeves so that they look super big and poofy. So to make these little pillows, I had two different crescent shapes. A like crescent moon shape and then like a croissant shape, kind of. I bagged out one side of these pieces and then just filled it with polyfill, doing the best I can to keep them even, to lock all the polyfill in, and then stitched the crescent shaped one into the shoulder and the like croissant shaped one into the bicep. And that's as far as I got for like this, what was supposed to be a short little, quick little, nice little project, until I came back an entire year later and I decided, let's complete this cosplay to a high enough level for competition. A point for me beforehand, I patterned it all myself, which judges love to see, and it had only taken me about 4 days to sew it up to this point, which I personally think is impressive. But here's how we make it competition ready. We had lace applique, beading, shading, and a wig, of course, and a prop. But I think I might save all that stuff for a part 2. So if you want to see how I level up my cosplay to make it a winning competition piece, you should subscribe. So cringe.